project to check, unsure what's next. Spend the days all in my head or in regret. Wish I didn't, but I do. And sometimes I let my mind drift to you. Song to song, it takes so long. I get fed up and
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our discussion on mental health in the music industry. My name is Julia, and I'm a master's student in the Global Entertainment and Music Business program here at Berkeley in Valencia. Today, we have a very special guest with us who has extensive experience in the music industry, especially in terms of psychology and mental health. We're joined by Rosana Corbacho, who is a music industry psychologist based in Madrid. She started her career in the music industry over 10 years ago in London. Since, she has worked in labels, events, and booking agencies. After years of research and completing 2 separate master's degrees, she founded MI Therapy, which is an organization aiming to raise awareness of mental health in the music industry and to offer specialized treatment. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rosana.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm just going to start off asking if you'd be able to tell us a bit more about your early career and how you got started in the music industry originally.
So my first steps were when I was living in Spain and I was about 21. I was working in a bank and it wasn't my kind of thing. So I quit and I moved to London because I love the music that was kind of happening there. And my favorite music at the time was electronic music from the 90s. So all kind of weird synthesizer kind of thing. And I always asked myself, why is it happening there? What is going on in that kind of island that brings all this new music, new stuff, new bands, new everything? So I just moved there. I couldn't speak any English and I started working in some random things. And my first job was in a music store. And I couldn't speak English, but I kind of smiled a lot and asked questions and started just like working and learning. From there, I started doing internships in different labels, even my favorite label, the one I moved there for. But my goal wasn't to work in the music industry because I am from a small town in the middle of nowhere in Spain. So that wasn't a goal in my life, but it was just my passion that drove me to be working and learning and taking all the chances and the opportunities to be just learning everywhere, from labels to press to events. And yeah, it was kind of an adventure.
Yeah, that's really cool. It sounds like you have like a lot of different experience in different areas, which is really interesting. So then after you were working in the industry for a bit, you decided to go back to school?
Mm-hmm. So when I was starting to speak English, then I was like, okay, I want to carry on learning something else. I need something else. So at the time when I was living in London, my friends, my group of friends were all kind of in the industry, either artists or musicians or working at labels or PR agents. And I was really amazed by the passion that they all show for their jobs. And I love the industry. I love how everyone was so keen and so connected and so eager. And also I saw kind of the downside to it and how some of them were, I don't know, they had like creative blocks or they were suffering even though they were successful and they like what they do. So I was just like observing and talking to everyone, and I felt, you know, science was needed in our industry, and there will be a way that, you know, these people got like specialist help. And I started like looking and searching, and I couldn't find anyone that was doing that. So I decided to go back to uni and started studying psychology at the same time while I was working in the industry. So kind of touring a lot with big books from then on for years.
Yeah. For sure. What was your other master's degree again? There's one in psychology.
Yeah, I'm a clinical psychologist and a humanistic psychologist. So right. On the science, kind of the clinical side of it, the treatment will be more focused in the issues and what's the problem and what are the symptoms, and helping with anxiety or depression or whatever. And then in the humanistic side, it will be more about helping people, getting to know their strengths and their aspiration and how to connect with their lives in their kind of professional and personal level. And it's kind of a very positive approach, and I really really like it because it's very good for working with the clients in therapy. Yeah,
Definitely.
I love both, so I couldn't choose. I did both. Yeah.
And then at what point did you start your music industry therapy company?
I started as soon as I finished my degree. And at the same time, while I was already doing talks and conferences and panels and all that, I was studying my master's degrees. I was working at an addiction recovery center and working in a booking, like a DJ booking techno agency. So everything at the same time.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you've obviously worked a lot with artists in a lot of different areas and studied like psychology in comparison to the music industry. At what point in an artist's career do you kind of see the most mental health issues come into play? Is it at the beginning? Is it once they've kind of like got more famous and dealt with all the issues of the environment of the music industry? What have you seen?
I believe the issues start almost since the beginning, depending on at what age do you start your career, because it's so specific. For example, in the musicians that are classically trained, they can start in their careers when they are 5. So that is, it doesn't happen if you want to be a doctor or if you want to be whatever else. So some problems can start almost since the beginning. But I feel when you dedicate your life and you live and you earn money out of it, it may start when you stop enjoying the hype. So when you get used to it, because before that, you are really looking forward to get there, to be successful. You are working and studying and giving everything, all your energy to achieve that and to arrive to that point in your career. And you think nothing bad is going to happen if you make it. So when you are there and you are excited because of all the hours that you have dedicated to your career, and imagine you don't have any friends because you didn't spend time with them, or you are very stressed or anxious, or the pressure is overwhelming, and you are not enjoying so much playing at a show because you have done quite a few, then the problems can start, because it's when you start asking yourself, what am I doing here? And I made it, so I don't have the right to be complaining or to suffer or to have kind of uncomfortable feelings. And that's when the problem can start sometimes. I mean, each case is different, but depending on what is your background, where you are coming from, how are your roots, let's say, then you'll be more resilient or less to different situations. So some people can find more difficult to be in the creative side, and other people, on the touring side. So it depends. Yeah, it depends. But I believe it will be when you stop kind of enjoying to the newness, let's say, or also when you have been really big and you don't have any shows anymore, or you don't have so much money. That's when the issues can, yeah, really arise.
Definitely. So what would you say are the most kind of common mental health issues that you've seen artists face in your experience?
Mm. My experience, anxiety is kind of the biggest and the most common issue. Depression as well. There is performance anxiety as well, or stage fright, and burnout for sure. Um, yeah, some issues with addiction, but it's not the main thing either. So depending on what is the stage in their career as well, they can have it or not. And usually it's not just one single problem, but they are some linked together.
Yeah, like intertwined. Yeah. Like, would you say anxiety often impacts depression with the musicians? It kind of leads to that?
Yes. Yes, the thing is, anxiety is a normal body response. Mm-hmm. The problem is when it stays with us for longer than it should, and it just creates some other issues. So if you have anxiety for a number of months, you can start feeling depressed as well, because that lack of energy, or you can isolate, and then that is gonna lower your kind of benefits or the positive inputs from the external world. So it goes in a vicious cycle. Or maybe, I mean, there is something really interesting. For example, in men, often when they have depression, they mask or try to cover the symptoms, or when they are feeling down, by doing things or actions when they are touring, for example, that doesn't show that they are depressed. But deep down, the problem can be depression. For example, if you see an artist on tour that is picking fights with everyone and really angry and I don't know, taking a lot of drugs or alcohol, and they just, they seem to be having fun maybe, but deep down maybe they have a depression, they are grieving, and they just don't want to feel vulnerable. So it makes the problem worse, of course.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually to think about it from like, the male musician perspective specifically. Do you think that there's any kind of preventative measures that could be taken for artists towards the beginning of their career that could kind of impact their mental health in a positive way in terms of their long-term career?
First of all, I would say just to put the focus within. So instead of having that external goal that you want to get there, and that's like the only thing I want to do in life is to get there, is to actually connect with what do you want to feel when you are successful, and how do you feel now in the present, and what are your feelings, what are your, not only the feelings, but also what are your thoughts about the triggers or about the industry or about the pressure, and what are your values, your core values. Why are you doing this? It's not just because you love music, it's because, I don't know, maybe you have been creative since you were born or something like that. Values are gonna make you feel really grounded, and it's gonna help you making decisions and even setting up boundaries from there. So there are a number of things that you can do in the beginning of your career, and especially just to have in mind that in order to have a long-lasting career, more balanced and even happier, you have to have that kind of inner balance in which you take care of your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships, your body, how you rest, and do a little bit of sport, and also to have a life outside the music, which is often the kind of most difficult thing that I have to ask in my practice. When I ask them, do you have any friends outside the music industry? Yes, maybe. Or do you take a day off? And well, yes, on my day off, I go to some gigs or to meet promoters or to meet other musicians. It's not quite a day off.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because for my thesis, I'm kind of exploring this topic, and I've been talking to a lot of artists, and a lot of them really say that they wish they could have more conversations with people on their team that have nothing to do with the business and more so like how they're doing, their well-being, and just their values in general. So I think that makes a lot of sense, especially at the beginning of the career, to just have a solid base of what your value is and what you really want. I know you mentioned earlier about you kind of focusing on the electronic music scene. I just wanted to ask what made you want to focus on this in terms of mental health, and do you think that the electronic music industry is more like susceptible to mental health issues?
Well, it was what took me to London. First of all, I really like that kind of world. I mean, the electronic music world, and everything that is linked to it. I feel is, I'm not gonna get into it because I am too passionate and we don't have time. But I saw when I was there and I was meeting all these people from the electronic music world, that if in the outside, I mean, in society, they have a view on bands, for example, and they think, oh yeah, they, rock and roll, or they take drugs, or they have fun, or whatever. It's like kind of, yeah, they have different issues. This is what I saw. So there are some characteristics, for example, you can be a DJ, successful DJ, and very young, earning a lot of money, and you travel by yourself. You don't travel with a crew, and you travel just with your backpack and nothing else. So that kind of feeling of loneliness, for example, or how different it is to be in front of a big crowd festival, for example, and then going back to the hotel by yourself, or going back to the studio for a week without talking to anyone, and not working with anyone else, that creates even some little extra issues, I believe, and I feel. And also the kind of careers can be from zero to a lot in very short time, and that is difficult to handle sometimes. On the other hand, some classical some musicians like DJs or electronic musicians, they don't even have a training in classical music. So most of the papers and the research, I'm sure you are aware of it, are on jazz musicians or classical music and all that, but there is not much about DJs or about electronic music producers or all that. So it's kind of very new, and it's more linked to the party world. It's less linked to the being in a concert. So now we have to be seated if we want to see electronic music live, but in general, it's more linked to being in a party. So that again is more linked to all the kind of drugs or even the shows are at night, all that kind of thing. It's very different from being, I don't know, a solo artist in classical music. And I find it really passionate and interesting. At the same time, the way they live their touring, imagine if a musician usually don't feel the right to complain because they enjoy what they do for a living. If you work as a musician in a party environment and you are feeling depressed, you don't want to ruin everyone's party. You don't want to say, oh yeah, I'm grieving because I lost my dog or whatever. You just have to be kind of putting up with everything. And there is a lot of competition as well, but that's in all kind of music. And often as well, careers end when they are very young, like just 40, around 40, some of them, after having a really, really stressful and, all around the world kind of lifestyle. And that's difficult to handle for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. Especially after, like you said, the culture of just the electronic music scene in general is definitely could lead to a lot of more issues, just as you explained. And as you were saying too, live performance is a huge part of it, especially like the past year with COVID, artists haven't been able to perform or connect with their audiences in the same way. What kind of differences have you noticed in the industry in terms of artist mental health since COVID? I mean, obviously, more people have been having more stresses and uncertainty in their life, but specifically for artists, is there anything you've noticed?
I noticed that the artists that were already in therapy, they were very grateful. And some of them even did like some other projects that they didn't think they would have to do, they will have time to do. And other ones used their time to connect with their families. And other ones started like completely different projects that had nothing to do with music until everything recovers. And some other artists were suffering lots actually because of some elements that were already in our industry, like uncertainty. You don't know whether it's going to be your salary next month. So imagine with a pandemic, you don't know what is going to be your salary until everything recovers. So depending on what were their capacities to approach problems and stressors, they will be going on one side or the other one. Also, what I saw, it was some people that already recovered from different issues in their life, they were having relapses on some symptoms. It doesn't have to be like the full problem, but it was kind of going back to some issues, depression or anxiety sometimes. And something really positive about all this is that I saw how they were getting more together. So I was offering some talks for keychains, kind of, for creators and people working in the industry and innovators, just to support through the first part of the process. And also I have been doing another talks for tour managers and technicians. I mean, one talk I did on imposter syndrome not that long ago, and it was like 50 something of them in the group. So and they meet every week. So that kind of peer-to-peer support that wasn't here before the pandemic, I hope it stays, because that is key to protect individuals from all the stresses from the environment. And that wasn't here before, because everyone had to be kind of perfect, hard worker, always happy, very attention to detail, very efficient, not having a personal life, of course. And now it's more, we are talking more about vulnerabilities, mental health, and how to improve. And we ask, how are you feeling? Which wasn't the case before. So, I mean, I'm very positive, humanistic side. This is what it has, but I hope it stays, because that's new. It's new and it's an improvement. Yes.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say a lot of people are definitely more understanding of kind of dealing with these mental health issues since the pandemic. And I do really hope moving forward, that everybody involved in the music industry is just more understanding and supportive in this area, especially. So kind of getting more into the live aspect of the music industry, why do you think touring and like the live component of artists' careers kind of has the worst impact on their mental health?
Mm, in regarding when they don't have any life outside the music industry, you said. Well, it's because you can get into the obsession. You get obsessive, and everything you do, everything you breathe is music, a music career. Usually, or it can be the cause of creative blocks, even when you are creating and you are just like very kind of goal-minded, and I need to have this kind of relationships with people, so I'm well connected and I can make it and I can sell my record, or I can think about, when you are making a track, if you are thinking about if that is going to be sold or not, or if whoever is going to like it, you have your focus outside yourself. So that is going to impact negatively in your creativity, for example, and it can add some anxiety. Even you can be procrastinating because you cannot handle the pressure, and that is going to feed into some negative cycles. When we get out of the music and we enjoy different things, and then we go back to training or to whatever you have to do, our brain is more fresh. Brain loves the new. This is why we get stuck in social media, because it's kind of new impulse, new triggers over and over and over again. So when we have, I don't know, when someone likes climbing and then they go back to the studio after being a weekend climbing in nature, they are going to be more productive and they are going to enjoy it more. So it's kind of, again, more balance. It's more balance when you have a little bit very focused, productive day just in the studio, and then another day where you are hanging out with friends who are not talking about music, and you are, I don't know, in nature or going to wherever you are allowed in the pandemic, but not just thinking and over again about the same thing, because then, you can get really stuck and you can start having some problems.
For sure. We actually have a question from Sean Carter. He's kind of asking in the basis of the live industry, what is the best way for touring musicians to balance family life with tour life and the depression that comes, the anxiety of family not understanding the entirety of your job and what it entails?
So it's a very good question. Very good question. So when touring are back, when touring is back, I would say something really good is to keep some routines that you do at home, and some kind of healthy routines that make you feel at home. And then when you go back home, you feel kind of in tour. So you have to find what is right for you. Some people get into yoga and they do yoga every morning, and then when they are touring, they do yoga as well, and that kind of helps body and mind and emotions to connect with that kind of inner homey space. And then also keep kind of a normal schedule, and sleep as much as you can. Take some days off when you are touring, and really connect while you are touring with your family still, and have them kind of very present. You don't have to be physically with your family in order to feel the connection, So it's, I would say, really nourish and take care of that connection with your family, because that is protecting you as well from all the stressors in tour. So someone who has really good relationships or already family and good connections with their friends and all that, they are less likely to suffer from anxiety or burnout or a number of symptoms. And when you go back home, that kind of blues from after touring kind of thing, then I will say go back to a normal schedule as soon as you can. Organize something that you enjoy with friends or family or all together. If it's something to do with nature, it's gonna help even more. And then also they can understand to a point, but they have their lives as well. Try as well to understand and get into the family cycle, and just to name what are your feelings. Instead of just understand me, is name what are your feelings, your emotions, and share them with your family. Because it's not the same thing to speak from here, which we are going to be talking about our view, and they are going to give us opinion, and then maybe we don't feel quite understood. And then another thing is to speak from here and say, I feel sad, I feel vulnerable, I feel whatever, all the emotions, because that is going to connect us with other people, our families or co-workers or whatever, in a different level. Yeah, it's much better.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of looking from the record label perspective, of course, labels should be very invested in their artist. They're a huge value to them. Do you think that record labels should have a role in supporting artists' mental health? And if so, how?
Definitely. Recently, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, music industry therapists and coaches, they were doing these workshops for Atlantic Records, and it was in order to help them not only with their mental health, the people working at the label, but in their relationship with the artist. So that for me is an amazing initiative, because when labels care about the artist's mental health, not gonna it's not their role to take care of their mental health. But if they are aware of what's going on, it's going to improve relationships, and it's going to improve the everyday kind of job. So if a label can offer some kind of, first of all, to learn about what is mental health, what are the signs that something may be going wrong, and then how can they protect their artists, just by, I don't know, when they are buying the logistics for a tour, or when they are not meeting some deadlines, then seeing if there is something else that's going on, if it's some issue with mental health, and being able to just provide like a directory of places with specialists that they can go to. Because one of the issues is when the kind of psychologist offer, let's say, comes from the label or from the manager, artists can be defensive and be like, no, I'm okay, I don't need that. Because of course that is gonna put them in a vulnerable place with the label or with the bookers, and they are scared that they are gonna be rejected if they have issues. So they are gonna try to cover it, and the problem adds up. So from the label perspective, I would be just very open to talk about mental health and offer some kind of workshops and list them on the website, and have like the same that you have all the kind of welcome pack for everything. In that, just like offer some kind of help, and be really encouraging that they take care of their mental health from the beginning, because that's gonna help amazingly all the relationships and the everyday working life for everyone.
Yes, definitely. It would be really, really cool to see more labels kind of get involved in this moving forward. We're almost out of time. We just had one last question. Employees in the music industry are very involved in everything going on, and they also face mental health issues and a lot of stressors in the environment. Why do you think that they, as well as artists, face a lot of mental health issues?
Well, because we all work in the same environment. Some colleagues would say that we have to change the environment in order to make it safer for the individuals. I believe we can start from the individuals as well. So when you work in in a booking agency or in a label, and you have a lot of stress, and you work a lot of months or years for free in order to get to that position, it's going to be very difficult to set up boundaries or to say, no, I'm not doing this, or no, I'm taking this day off. So when you learn how this is a very good investment because you want to give your best to the company, and giving your best means you give your best and you rest and you have some limits, and some days you are ill as well, and you are allowed to be ill. It's okay to be ill. Then everything is going to be better for everyone, the company, the individuals, and they have issues out of burnout, for example, is super common. Then they never disconnect. They don't switch off the phones. I mean, I have done that for years. And then you are always kind of aware, and if there are any issues, you are there just to sort them out. And it kind of creates some codependency patterns in the relationships. Managers with bands, the band with the booker, the label with the manager. So all that kind of very complicated relationship. I mean, for me, super interesting. But it would be better if we all learn to say no from time to time, and to really see where am I heading and up to where I want to give to this company if I want to stay a long time. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Well, we're out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. It was very insightful and very nice to hear all of your insights and experience in this area.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Take care.